So I was living in the middle of the woods, deafening silence, just the crickets outside or whatever, candles all around me, pitch darkness, reading Deliver Us from Evil. And I am so into it. And I'll always remember that book is a fantastic book. Maybe it wasn't even a fantastic book. Maybe it was just the atmosphere of when I was reading it. But I think you'd enjoy that.
It's probably a case where Nick is sitting there. He's in the woods. There's just silence around him, and that deep silence. All of a sudden he hears, "Welcome to the show!"
You really had me hooked there. I was like, what's going to happen to me?
Man, Nick's like, I don't even know this story, but it's so captivating.
Did I live?
Still being written, Nick. Still being written.
Still, yeah. It could end any time, or it could go on longer than it should, like some books.
Oh, man. What is going on, Nick? Brand new week. Another week down.
New week. Yeah, last week was, I don't know about you, but last week was busy and rough as hell for me.
Last week I was traveling a ton. I'm on the road a lot now with what we're doing at my company, my day job. For those of you that don't know, I'm not a world-renowned podcaster just yet.
No, on the cusp.
On the cusp. Just as soon as YouTube lets us out of jail, I will be one. And so, yeah, I've been on the road with this day job quite a bit. So I haven't really had a chance to do much else. I feel like I'm going to work, driving all day, coming back home, editing something, going to bed, and repeating the cycle.
Well, you're driving around in a brand new Batmobile, though, so that's got to be nice.
I do have a new Batmobile. Listen, the Batmobile drives itself,
sharp.
And I like it.
Boy.
I like it when it kind of, I'll be honest, I told everyone since I've gotten this car that the hardest thing about it, like by far, the thing that I'm trying to get used to is I get tired now.
Oh.
Because
get too relaxed?
Yeah. Like it literally, like you just put your hand on the steering wheel. It just literally just goes where it needs to go.
Man, that's nice. Probably smooth as heck. You can't hardly tell you're driving, and
you don't know when the engine's on. I figured out that you got to wait until it says ready on the dashboard, and that means it's ready to go.
Oh, okay.
When I first bought it, I thought that meant that the EV was ready, but the electric motor comes on first.
Oh, okay. Well, that kind of makes sense if you think about it.
I guess. It was confusing to me. I'm like, what the heck? What the heck is going on? I don't even know.
Yeah, I see that you have been recording a lot of stuff as you go about your day and that kind of thing. And that's inspired me a little. I got out there and took some footage for a fake documentary I'm going to do.
Ooh, fake documentary, you say?
Yep, went down to the lighthouse and grabbed a bunch of footage. 4K footage, even on the Action 4, is like more than a gigabyte a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's big stuff.
Oh, yeah, big time.
But I had an idea because once I get my real camera, the first movie I want to do is a very simple one that's like an exorcism kind of thing. And I thought, you know what would go good with that?
What?
Because I was reading some stuff and it's like, just get out there and film with whatever you got.
Yeah.
You'll always have reasons to put it off. You'll always say, oh, I'll do it when this happens, or I'll do it when that happens.
They're not wrong.
Right. And where you've been filming your day, I thought, well, you know what? I should get out there and do some stuff. So over the weekend, I grabbed my camera, went down to the lighthouse, got some nice, I'd say probably like 20, 30 minutes of shots down by the shore and stuff. It was a little overcast, so it fits the mood. And I'm going to do a fake documentary by the BBC instead of the BBC, the BBC. And I already whipped up like a little opening for it that looks very 70s, 80s.
Oh, I like that.
Interviews on it, and it's about a fictionalized sect of the church called the Order of Sarin, Saint Sarin. And it's basically this one that broke off because they thought the focus should be not on necessarily changing the people, but fighting evil. So it's like only exorcist sect that sort of operates in the shadows kind of thing, and that's going to be sort of like part of the history of the protagonist of the my real movie when it comes out.
That's interesting.
So I'm doing some lore backstory building, and that's what I'm doing with my regular cameras now. So
I think that's cool. So basically I've just been trying to the the best way I can put it is I wanted to play around with different concepts and ideas because we've
mm,
got our shots that are shots. We've got our trips that's coming up in September. So it's
right,
literally right around the corner. I mean, we're talking months from now.
yeah, and it's running right up on us. It's going to be
It
soon. I'm
really is.
excited.
And I'm like, you know what? The biggest thing that's going to be part of that video that's going to be coming out for that's going to be the B-roll. Well, the best
Mm,
way for me to do B-roll is to literally go out and shoot B-roll.
right, right.
Like
You know,
once I get used to doing that. So I'm trying to think of like interesting places to always start my shot. So
yeah,
like one day was in a refrigerator. One day was sitting outside my car. Like I've got all these planned out little things. And I try to think about what I'm going to shoot through the day. And I'm like, well, heck, I live a kind of an interesting life as far as what I do on the
yeah,
daily basis.
right,
So I'm like, it wouldn't be hard to do it. The problem is finding time to edit it. That's always my issue because I've got so
right.
many things being edited at the same time that it's just
Hmm.
we really need like an actual editor. Like if we had that, man, good night. We'd be
Right,
set.
right. I know one thing I got
Nuts.
to learn is how to work with proxies because editing like 4K or higher
Mhm.
video, just like no matter how good your system is, just bogs you right down. So I've got to spend a
Yeah.
little time learning how to set up the proxies and stuff like that.
So Adobe right now has something that it does pretty well where you're just putting is like a the best way I can put it is like a holder in place, which is basically I think what you're talking about.
Proxies where you get a lower resolution that you work on, and
Mhm.
then when it comes time to render, it just swaps them out.
Like Adobe's kind of weird. Like I've used Adobe for years and I've almost always edited 1080. But here lately I've been
Mm,
recording in 4K and just scaling down because it's action cams. It's not like the like
yeah.
with my camera, it's easier for me. For anyone that doesn't know, it doesn't, in my personal opinion, it doesn't make any sense to put anything in 4K because most people would not watch 4K. I bet if you looked at everyone on
Right.
YouTube and you put a 4K video up, I bet less than 10% watch in 4K.
Yeah, I check for it, and it's not
Mhm.
very frequent that I can get anything 4K.
Oh, I bet not. And for the most part, like if you can learn to frame at 1080, like it's perfect.
Mm,
But with action cams, it's a little different. Like I'll be honest, I miss shots. I miss shots on a 4K action camera that I would have had with my actual camera. So like my Sony Alpha,
right.
that I could do 1080 and never miss a shot. But those freaking action cams, dude, they die. They just get killed off. I'm like, God, dang it.
I had a good idea. I tried on a harness with my action cam when I went up to the city last time,
Hmm.
and the footage was awesome. Like it was really cool. However, for some reason, I got this idea in my head that the camera was above the steering wheel and I could see stuff on the sides of the road. And so I had it on while driving a bunch of the
Yeah.
way. None of that footage was useful. I don't know why I thought the camera was like up where I was looking. It wasn't. So kind of foolish there. But these are the things you got to try to figure this stuff out.
Well, that's the thing. If you don't, three-quarters of the things that I think are going to be amazing suck.
Yeah.
And the rest of it's pretty sweet. It's just a matter of knowing where that fine line is. That's the problem.
Yeah. And I think that's part of that advice that I read where they're like, just get out there and shoot because you need to learn these things before you get serious. Like you need to have this knowledge in your head before you go to make your big shots, the shots that you can't redo and that kind of stuff.
Well, the funny thing is like when I look at like everything that I've ever done and I'm like, dude, that's dope. I'm totally going to use that.
Mm,
It's usually a case where I didn't even know and I tried it for something else and I'm like, dude, that's kind of dope. Not in the application of what I just used it for, but I could use
right.
it doing this or that. And then I end up using it later. And it's like, golly, I wish I would have thought of this.
I'll tell you the hardest part from my experience, because I haven't done a lot of like fiction stuff,
Mhm.
but I've done a lot of music videos at this point. And getting other people to do what you're envisioning,
Yep.
that is the hardest part.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, not everyone is cut out for that kind of thing. And especially when you're dealing with free help, right? Like free help is the worst.
Yeah, it is free. Well, I mean, I'm doing it for them. So it's not like, they should be charging me. So,
But it's like with what we do, especially with like what's coming up in
mhm,
September, is going to be a kind of an interesting because we're going to have two different ideas of what we should do.
right.
And I think that we'll be able to combine those two concepts and idea to create something amazing. And I can't wait to see what that's going to be.
I know. I think my main idea is capture everything we can possibly capture. And then we got options, right?
100% we do.
Yeah, we want everything. Of course, the ghosts are going to manifest under the action cameras, the only place that we won't be able to see on a 360 camera. So,
Probably right. It's probably right. It's funny because Jess picked up a box just for all the ghost hunting stuff that I've got right now, and like it's getting filled up
mhm.
quick. Like it doesn't take a whole lot.
Oh wow, is it like a hard case like those ones I collect, or
Yeah, kinda. But it's like the big tubs.
oh they're so handy?
I haven't tested it yet. I think you and I talked about it, but for the mixer, I finally found these microphones that I'm going to put in
Mm,
all the rooms, so one per room.
right.
And this is going to be where all the audio go into that mixer down there. So I'm super curious what that's going to be like.
Have you tried out the mics yet?
No, I still need to. I haven't had a chance to. Like when I say I never have a chance to do anything, people's like, oh, whatever. He's probably just doing something else. It's like, I usually am doing something else.
No, this is a busy fella. I can attest to that.
It's
He's on
nuts,
the
man.
go.
Especially right now, this doggone day job screw me up, Nick. I ain't got no
I know.
time for
We need
nothing
to
else.
retire.
I know. Some days I feel like I should be about that age. Good night. I've been doing this for so freaking long now.
I
Come
know.
on.
Time flies when you're working for the man.
That's about right. Amen on that. Amen. Speaking of the man,
Mhm.
you and I, we kind of talked about all this ghost stuff before we technically jumped on here. And I found it interesting. I didn't know per se who this guy is. Like I've heard of this guy before.
Right.
I'm curious if you know who it is. It's a guy, I think his show goes by Tim Cast. Have you heard of this guy?
Nope, never heard of him.
So Tim Cast is I I think he's like a political news guy or something. I don't know a lot about him. The only reason I
Right.
know him is from the Joe Rogan podcast,
Mhm.
which I feel like everyone knows Joe Rogan
Yeah, everyone's heard of Joe.
for sure. I found it interesting though because I was watching this. I don't know what you would call it, but it's like some guy that talks about all the stuff that's going on in paranormal, and they brought him up, and I'm like, why would they talk about Timcast on this show? And come to find out, he had an episode that he did where he talked about he was starting to have some poltergeist activity that was going on the show.
Oh, like sort of following him around.
Kinda. And it's interesting because he talked about people's names that I can't say it. Doesn't it's not even the name that we typically can't say, but it's another name where I'm even scared to say
Right.
that name because I don't know what YouTube will do.
Like it's too close sounding, or
No. Like I think it's someone else that's equally hated as much as that person we can't name.
okay.
Um well, all Joe Rogan's guests are a big part of them, right?
Right. I
The
mean,
guy
there's a good rotation of guys there.
there was a guy that has all these conspiracy theories,
Hmm.
and he got in a little bit of trouble for talking about a school, and that'll probably
Oh
give you an
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
So I'm scared to mention his name, but anyway,
Yeah, I think that's probably a good fear to have, to be honest.
yeah, I think it is. But he was talking about, and I thought it was interesting. I wrote down some quotes that he said from the pot or from whatever that episode was, but he said, I can say one thing Poltergeist experienced twice, and everyone was like jaws hanging on the floor, freaking out by what happened. And he talked about, and he didn't go too deep into it in the episode, but there was a series of like objects moving on their own, doors opening, windows sliding up, lights turning
Mhm.
on and off. He said he heard disembodied voices, like a child saying mommy when there was no one there.
Oh.
And what makes it so interesting is we're talking about a guy that, and again, his name's Tim Pool. I just now noticed it.
Oh, okay.
But what makes it so interesting is he's kind of a skeptic on most things.
Hmm.
So to have anything happen to the point to where he's like, there's something up with this. He brought up some potential theories of what he thinks it would be. And I'm like, this is all stuff that Nick and I talk about all the time. And he talked about residual energy or EMF manipulation. We've not talked about that,
Hmm.
but he's talking about the potential of like government EMF manipulation.
Oh, really? For what purpose? For the purpose of this spiritual stuff, or?
He didn't really go too deep into it, so I'm not sure.
Hmm.
But he talked about interdimensional intrusions, which is what he got from the guy that we can't say his name.
Right.
And I thought that was interesting.
Well, that's a lot like that. Actually, we were talking about it earlier. The camp. Keep forgetting what it was. It was
Montauk?
my episode, even. Yeah, Montauk. Like that was
Hmm.
all about interdimensional intrusion, but
Right,
us pushing the other way.
right. And he kind of brought that up because apparently the man that we can't name has talked about that a ton. In which I'll be honest, I've not really watched that
Hmm.
guy either. So I don't, I don't really know. I don't really know. Like I'm talking about things third party that I don't know anything about, but he's the one that talked about it. But apparently they're looking to kind of figure out what's going on with like the studio. And now they're trying to figure out, could it be something that's in the ground or something that's going on with them? Or did maybe someone put like a curse on the building or them or whatever it may be? He's even talking about a thing called
Right.
consciousness echo or like a time overlap. But it's kind of
Okay.
interesting.
I'm curious about that. Tell me more about that part. Time overlap. What is
See,
this?
he didn't freaking allude. The only thing he's doing, and I'm thinking what time overlap is, and we've talked about it. He didn't mention what his version is, and there could probably be more than one version, but the one that I keep hearing is even though we're on like a time that we from beginning to end that we're on, interdimensional beings are not on that time scale. So I
Right. We
think that's
talked
what he's
about that a
talking
little
about.
with Joe and stuff.
Correct. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Now that fascinates me. That's if that kind of thing is a real thing, like how could you count on anything in the progression of time? Like how can we know that there's anything that couldn't happen?
It's impossible to know. I think that's part of it.
Right. Right. So the rules of reality are very touch and go if that stuff's true. And that's
Well,
interesting. I find that fun.
well, like science will allude to the fact that there's certain things that is starting to come out now with the development of AI. AI is starting to figure things out that we've not been able to quite click together. But what they're doing is
Right.
they're taking that information, they're kind of testing it to a degree.
Mm,
So kind of like what scientists would do, right? Like a scientist would come up with this hypothesis, they'd print an article on it, and then all the other scientists would then kind of weigh in. Well, that's what's happening with AI. AI is saying, what if X, Y, and Z? And now scientists are going through going, that's either realistic or unrealistic.
right.
So,
By our own limited means of judging things,
right, because we
you
couldn't
know?
figure it out to begin with.
Yeah, it's like us judging AI realistic or unrealistic. That's like, imagine you're just a lay fella and you're having a conversation with Stephen Hawking when he was alive, and he tells you all kinds of stuff, and you're like, nah,
Oh, yeah, big time.
I I don't understand that, so I ain't buying that.
Correct. That's what makes it so hard because it's like, at least with me, like when I sit back and I think about a lot of this stuff, I go, I'm so limited in my thought process of what this could
Right.
be.
You and me both, brother. I'll tell you.
Like some things I talk to my parents about, and they're like, this is way over my head. And I'm like, how's this over your head? And then I sit there and I think
Right.
about all the things that's over my head. And I'm like, I kind of
Right.
get it now.
It's all stepping stones. Like, there's stuff that kids understand really well these days that I don't understand very well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, my kids bring up stuff all the time. I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, none of that
Right.
makes any kind of sense to me, but they get it.
Yeah. Because we're that next generation of people who aren't getting it. Like, our parents don't get what we got. Kids don't get what we don't get what kids got. Their kids ain't going to get what they got, you
Correct.
know?
Like, I think the most fascinating thing is from an AI perspective,
Mhm.
with what we have now, what we've acquired in a very short time frame.
Yeah. Like, under a couple years.
Correct. What is it going to be like 10 years from now?
And what's it going to be like next year?
Right. Like, I'll be honest.
Like, I don't even know if I can accurately predict what's going to happen next week.
No, it's impossible. Like, I saw Google's new AI video that came out. And what's so amazing is not only will it render a video, but it will do sound effects or a voice and sync the lips or the
Hmm.
action to the sound effect or the words.
I've seen that in action. I think they did a live test on that. Because one day on TikTok, everyone's lips were moving funny, and then all of a sudden the next day it was gone. But I think they were doing a live test of the translation and AI lip sync.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that at all. It's
Yeah, I
like
was like,
right
what is
now.
going on?
It's like right now, I could literally, I think you and I talked about this to a degree, but I've put hours of my voice into AI and it's
Hmm.
literally just there to like correct things that I may have said wrong in my podcast. And it's like, I really don't want to go and re-record this. And it
Right.
just, I put a random AI video or a picture behind it, and then it just says what it is that I was supposed to say. What I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
That's so handy because re-recording stuff, like when I was doing stories and stuff like that, I'd read for like 15 minutes and mess it up
yeah,
and be like, kind of got to go back and do the whole thing again. Or,
it's the
not
worst.
anymore though,
No, why is that?
because we have stuff like Descript where you can
Hmm.
just correct what you said. Even if it's not well trained on your voice, it can still figure it out pretty well.
Yeah, it does a pretty good job. I think of all the tools I'm currently using, I think 11 Labs for my voice,
Mhm.
and it's probably just the sheer amount of volume of hours that it has of my voice. Like literally, I think
Right.
there's 4 or 6 hours of my voice in there now, and it can pretty much, I mean, I'll be honest, if I had my voice and that voice, and it's that way that I do my voice, if I was to
Mhm.
put them side by side and I give myself like 6 months and somebody said, which one's you? I'd be like, I'm not sure.
Yeah. You know what? You remember, so when we did the Christmas episode, we had to lean heavily on 11 Labs, changing our voices for different segments and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, big
It's
time.
gotten even better since then. Because let me show you. I was talking about doing that fake documentary,
Mm-hmm.
and this is my voice, sort of changed with 11 Labs. And tell me that doesn't sound like a BBC narrator. I'm just popping it into the Discord now.
Let me see here.
In the forgotten folds of Christian history lies a shadowy order, neither canonized nor condemned. It has survived centuries by remaining silent.
That's pretty good.
Right? I just read my script, popped my voice clip in there, chose another voice. A1.
That's insane to me that it's able to do that. But here's the thing. It's like, even though you're capable of doing that, it's still a voice that nobody else knows. I think the true test when it comes to this kind of technology is when you take someone's voice that you do know.
Right.
And then, like, let me go in here and let me just see if I plug my, let me just think of a, like, let me just take this article that I've got wrote down here. Let me just copy and paste. Everyone's going to be like, this is how I know he does all this stuff. Let me generate this in my voice.
Well, we've never really been secretive about any of this stuff, so. But it's just a tool for us. It's not the meat
Correct.
and potatoes.
Correct. But people are so weird about AI. I think that's what I find so funny. Is that people are so, it's like if you use any form of AI, it's like their whole entire brand is now cooked. And it's like, come on, man, you must be nuts, dude.
No, I mean, they've got a right to be angry for people who are like ripping off artists and stuff. Like I told you before about those people who hired voice actors and actresses, cloned their voice and did a whole video game with AI and fired all the actors and actresses. Like that's evil.
That is evil. And here's the,
Like,
I'll be honest.
Illegal.
I'll be honest. Like if I listen to a video and I sit there and I think, kind of gives me AI vibes a little bit. And it's just something that someone probably plugged into like an AI thing. And then that's what you're hearing is just the AI thing. It's like, I can't do that. And then I get a little annoyed by that. But like, here's this little section that I put in here. This is kind of my notes. Listen to this and tell me this doesn't sound like me. I could say one thing, poltergeist experience twice. And everybody was like jaws hanging on the floor, freaked out by what happened. Reaction. The events caused a visible shock and disbelief in those who witnessed them. Details. Tim does not elaborate in this clip. What exactly occurred during those poltergeist experiences? Implication. He seems to be suggesting something happened in their studio or workspace, potentially involving unexplained movement or interaction with the physical environment. Like, that's crazy to me. That sounds a lot like me, but it's typically like my other voice. It's like when I go, I can say one thing. Poltergeist experience twice, and everyone was like jaws hanging on the floor, freaked out by what happened. Like the fact that it's able to even put my pauses in, it's like there's no pause. I'm not telling it to pause, but it's heard so much of my voice in that specific way of reading stuff.
It's figuring it out.
Like I could throw an audiobook in there right now and probably redo an entire audiobook just with what's there.
I'm convinced people are doing that from some of the titles I've downloaded.
I know that there's books that I have on Audible, and it says that voices are generated using AI.
Right.
So I've seen those labels on there. That doesn't necessarily bother me. It's the YouTube videos that I think annoys me the most. And I think the biggest problem is like when it gets something that everyone knows wrong, like specifically someone's name, right? Like there was one I was watching the other day and I'm like, gosh, like anyone would get this name right. It was like who was it, man? I can't even remember, but it got the person's name wrong. And I'm like, no one would mess that up. And then my brain is so focused on the mistake that it made that I'm like, I can't watch this.
Right. I can't remember what it was, but I was trying to show AI to someone recently,
Mhm.
and I did a little sentence, and there was a very common place name in it, and it just could not figure out that place name. And then I gave it up, and I'm like, I'm not demoing this for you. Because it was like, I don't remember what it was, but it was something like, let's say it was like New Jersey. It was going New Jersey
Yeah.
or something like that. Like,
But here's the thing. If you're putting that kind of content out here and it's on YouTube,
right.
if you don't even go through to have whatever system you're using re-render that means you just
Right.
took the quickest possible path to throw something out there and
Right.
there's zero effort, which tells me everything was probably created with ChatGPT or with Claude or with
Yeah.
whomever. And that's my
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. And the internet's getting so flooded with this. But you know what it reminds me of? Just remember when Steam got flooded with shovelware from the
Oh yeah.
Unity store?
Yep, I remember.
And you had to sift through so much stuff, but eventually that got under control and that stuff fell off completely. And I think eventually this other stuff will too, because people are just not going to accept it.
I think it's getting to the point now, at least for me, that I'm so sick and tired of seeing it that I
Yeah.
automatically click off those videos, and it's probably hurting their algorithm. But I'm like, it's not me that's hurting
Right.
your algorithm. It's you that's hurting your algorithm.
Yeah. Yeah. You're doing this to yourself.
Right.
Don't use it as your whole identity.
You have to use it like
to
a tool.
enrich what you're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, here's a great example. Like, obviously my day job, I go through and, I piece together all this stuff. And I've got a system now that I created with AI that's basically an agent that looks at what I did from the previous week. And then it helps me build the next week of what I should do. And the whole
Right.
premise and concept and idea behind the entire thing is, what can I do better that from a human standpoint, my brain can't quite wrap around?
Yeah.
And that's just using it as a tool. I do it on the podcast. Now, a lot of times when I do deep research, I'll freaking do deep research. It'll plug in all the information, the stuff that I would spend hours on the internet with. It's doing in like 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I take that and then I put that into like Notebook LM, that kind of stuff. I mean, I think that's a fine use. I don't see any issues with that. And to a degree, I think it's probably better because I can't tell you how many times I've taken information from someone. And then when it's all said and done, I'm like, dang it. Like, I wish I wouldn't have included this one thing. Well, you can do that with Notebook LM. You can take out sources that you don't find that strong anymore, and then you can rewrite whatever you're doing. And then usually when I get done writing a script, I run everything through like ChatGPT and I go, hey, is there anything I missed?
Right.
What did I miss? What could I have added? Is there an emphasis that I'm missing? If I'm the viewer of this transcript, I always say transcript instead of script, because I wanted to think I already recorded. And then I go back through and I say, is there anything that as a viewer, they probably question that I could answer inside? And then it'll give me all these different ideas. And some of them's crap. I'm like, no one's going to ask that question. But some of them, like, I didn't even think of that. Like, I didn't even think of that perspective.
Right. Sometimes it just gets you. It's like having a second person there that can get you thinking outside your own head.
Right.
Because you can't edit your own creations. You can't correct your own code. You can't, judge your own artwork. Like, you need someone to pose a oppositional opinion on things.
For sure. 100%. And, I think the biggest problem is when it comes to critiquing stuff or even trying to come up with different concepts or ideas, I give something to a friend of mine and they go, dude, this is perfect. Perfection. And I go, okay, dude, like, no, it's not. Like, I'm asking you to help me here. Like, don't give me a pep rally. I don't need that.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out what can I improve? What can I do better? And I'll be honest, like anyone that's listened to my personal podcast, there's been a transition in how I do it. And I've just kind of just now sat on what I would call my formula. So, and a lot of that came from trial and error. And some of it came from just ideas that AI gave that I'm like, I'll give you a great example. There was an episode that I did probably, I don't know, 3-4 months back. And I was telling AI, like, what is an area in this story? I'll never forget. What is an area in this story that someone might be confused? And it brought up the skeptical point of view. And it's like, from the skeptical point of view, there's a question about this, and that's not necessarily the way that people look at this. It could be this and that. I'm like, I never really thought about that. Like, there probably is more than one different thing. So now when I do deep research, I do a separate section. I say, search for any skeptical point of view on this story. And another thing that I do is I do deep research, and I do give me all the fringe theories about this from an outside perspective. And that's where my formula came for my episode now. So it's like every single episode, there's a hook, there's an opening, and then I do it by acts. I call them acts. So there's the intro where I'm building the character, the development, whatever the story is. Then there's the action. So this is the action scenes that happen. And sometimes there's more than one, like sometimes in different, like this week's a prime example. This week I'm doing a story. It won't come out for 2 weeks after this comes out, but it's on Dudleytown, Connecticut. And I had never heard of Dudleytown, Connecticut ever. And the way that I found it, again, it was AI. I said, give me 25 different folklore stories that could potentially be true. And as I'm going through the list, I'm like, I've never heard of, is literally like the third one on the list, Dudleytown, Connecticut. I'm like, what the heck is that? Right. So I did deep research, and I'm like, tell me everything about this. And as I read through, I'm like, this is kind of a spooky story. It reminded me of, remember when you did the story on the Kennedy family and that curse?
Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing.
Curse ones are interesting.
Super interesting, because this one, what it was, there's a gentleman, the first gentleman, I think his name was William Dudley. Anyway, it happened in the UK. This was before the United States was even, we even made that transition over here. But he basically was trying to get into power. He went up against the king. King cut his head off. And before they cut his head off, it was said that there was this curse that went on to the family before he died. And then it followed through his lineage all the way into the United States. And the bulk of it happened in this Dudleytown, Connecticut, which was named literally for them. But what made it so interesting was it didn't just stick with the family. It started moving out and hitting other people also. And apparently to this day, there's still some things that happens, but super interesting story. But as I was saying, there's a hook, there's an opening, and my openings just literally, like my hook is always, this is the action, this is what's happening. It's just like a little bam. I just hit you with a little piece of information. I want to get you hooked, right? Once I got you hooked, then I do my opening. So I tell you what we're going to be doing through the story. And then I always end that opening with, let's retrace the echoes if you dare. And then it goes boop. And then we go into act one. Act one is always, this is the opening scene. This is why this stuff is happening. Act two is always the action or the series of actions. Act three is typically what I call the climax. So that's the hot part of the story. Then we come into the conclusion of the story. And then, thanks to AI 3 months ago, now I've got a skeptic's corner. So this is the 3 top skeptical points of view. And then after that, I give, this is why believers believe that that's not true. And I break down their 3 theories. Then I go into a fringe theory. So these are the top fringe theories. And then I go into the close. So that entire format, if anyone that goes back and listens to the stories that I gave, they were completely different a year ago, because I didn't go into that kind of a way of breaking it down. So that's the beauty of AI. You can't have AI create this stuff, but it can give you some amazing ideas. It can also do amazing research.
So I kind of want to go back for a second. And this is
Mhm,
something, even though we did episodes on curses, that
mhm.
we kind of neglected to go into. I want to know what your thoughts are on like what is a curse and how does it work? Like what causes that to be a thing?
I think that there's multiple potential capabilities, and mine is not even like the
Mhm.
fringe theories on this story wouldn't even be the ones that per se I would go to automatically. Like I truly do believe, and people can say I'm crazy for this, but like when it goes into demonic
Mhm.
activity or voodoo or stuff
Right.
like that, I truly believe that that can happen. I've seen firsthand this
Mm,
stuff happen to people.
right.
So, I
So
said it.
along those lines,
Mhm.
like can an evil person place a curse on an innocent person just by their own will or through the demonic ways or
Absolutely.
Hmm.
I think completely innocent people can curse themselves. In fact, biblically, it talks about family curses that run through lineages.
Right. Now, was that caused by the family or by someone cursing them?
The curses came from like the original person. It was never somebody casting a
Right.
curse. It was always that person being cursed or cursed by God through
Right.
lineage.
And that kind of sucks. Like someone you never even met is causing your family like terrible. Well, I mean, that's what a lot of the curses are. Like the Kennedy family members, like their great
Mhm.
great great grandfather disturbed a treasure and got
Yeah.
cursed that ran all the way down through their family. Like most of them, I doubt even knew the story.
Oh, yeah, for sure not. I mean, think about it. What do you know about your great great grandfather? Like, you may know a name, but do you know anything about their
I
life?
honestly, great great grandfather, I
Yeah.
don't even think I know their names on either side.
See, that's what I'm saying. like, what do you do with
Right?
that? How would you ever know?
I know like it doesn't take very long for people who aren't like super historical figures to sort of like fade back into history and that kind of
Right.
thing. And if one of them did something that caused your family to be cursed, like what are the odds you can even discover that?
I don't think you can. I think that after a while, it's the, probably the easiest way to look at this, I would think, would be like,
Mhm.
and we talk about it all the time, right? You're looking for a pattern. Like if I
Right.
see X, Y, and Z had this happen, now this person had this happen, and now I have this happening.
Mhm.
Eventually, I have to be like, all right, there's something to this.
Right.
And then the question becomes, and that's why, to a degree, like there's even a scare factor when it comes to being in the mind's eye of people. And that's why I'm very
Mm.
careful about what I say because, you know, inadvertently we could put ourselves on a list where we get cursed
Oh yeah,
and
very easily.
very easily. There was a story, it's a very interesting story. I wish I could remember all of it, but there was a, and we may have talked about this story. I don't know, but there was this guy who was very skeptical and he was very much into Egyptology.
Mhm.
And I think he was set up on a blind date with a woman who was also into Egyptian historical. But the guy that was also into it, he was really into the music aspect. I think he was like a DJ. Like I think that's what he did for a living. He was like an actual DJ
Like he was
and
into ancient Egyptian music?
music. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so I think someone set him up on a blind date or it was a dating app or something. But he went out on this date and he didn't really consider it a date. Like he just wanted to be platonic friends with this female. Well, this female
Right.
did not want to be platonic. Like she was really into him, but she was a good deal older than he was, and he wasn't interested like
Mm.
that. So
Right.
basically, she was like, hey, there's all these things that's super interesting, blah, blah, blah. And he kept saying, I think, we can be friends and we can be this and that. She ended up putting a curse on him. And
Ooh.
she told him, you're going to be cursed and you're going to regret this and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, okay, yeah, yep, no problem. And the story goes that he didn't really even care. He was like, okay, whatever.
Hmm.
And then a series of things started happening days later. And one of the things that he noticed was inside of his apartment, he started noticing that there'd be these sounds. And I think this was the story. He heard a knock on the door and he opened the door and there was nothing there. And what the theory is if you open the door and you allow whatever it is in, now it's there. And
that's like the physical manifestation of the curse, kind of.
Correct. So the story goes that all these things started happening and he started freaking out and he started even having some health issues and he started freaking to the point to where now he's starting to go to religions, which he doesn't necessarily believe in. He went to this Bible store and he told them what was going on. And they're like, what you need to do is you need to put salt around each one of the walls. You need to condemn whatever this out is to get it out and light these candles and do this or that. And there was a series of days that went by where no one heard from him. And his job ended up doing a welfare check on the guy, and they found him dead in his bathtub.
Ooh.
And the interesting part was there was candles and Bibles around the bathtub. And what they're saying is the curse fulfilled itself. And they had found where he was doing almost like these religious things with the salt around all the walls and around the windows and the doors. And they're saying that the curse was fulfilled. But
it's almost
it's
like
an
a
interesting
self-fulfilling curse.
Right. But it's kind of an interesting story.
A lot of it is. And it sort of leads back to the origin of curses, because a lot of them come from ancient Egypt, and they were to deter people from opening the tombs. Because I mean, a pharaoh gets buried, no one's hanging out around there. They're not guarding it really at all. They're sort of leaving it, assuming no one's going to get in there. So robbing one pharaoh's tomb, of which there used to be tons and tons of them, because a lot of them were inbred and they did not live very long.
Correct.
You could break in there real easy, take your time, and be set for life. You only had to do it once.
Right.
So they started coming up with these curses and stuff like that. And in fact, the Tutankhamun curse, that was one that it was such on the edge of it being a curse and also being natural occurrences. Like a guy goes and shaves the day after they open the tomb, and it gets infected and he dies the next day. Stuff like that kind of happens. And it's real easy. If someone tells you about a curse, you're going to be looking.
Oh, for sure.
For everything that could fit into it, right?
Absolutely.
So does the curse make the curse?
Here's the thing,
or
man.
Do we make the curse?
We talk about this too. Like once you believe whatever it is, the power of suggestion is a mighty powerful thing. And it's like we talked about last week. For anyone that didn't watch last week's podcast, go back and watch it. We talked about if there's a machine that could tell you how long you had to live, would you do it? We asked that question last week. And I said I wouldn't. And the reason for that is, well, now I've just gave myself a preconceived idea that that's the final resting spot. Like if it says 2 weeks, then I've got 2 weeks. Even if I don't believe it, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, what if?
Right.
Like,
And maybe you start behaving dangerously because you think you've only got 2 weeks.
I don't even think you have to do that.
You to have 2 weeks.
I don't even think you have to do that. I think that your body naturally starts shutting down. I think that I got to be very careful of my wording here.
Right.
I think that power of suggestion in your body can also heal things. And that's why there's been these televangelists that have been like, for $100, we can cure you of X, Y, and Z. And then miraculously, by some miracle, these people are walking and stuff. And some people go,
Right.
well, they're walking because they could really walk before. And I'm like, sometimes I
Mm.
don't think so. Sometimes I think that they may have been capable, but their body just wouldn't allow them to. And then the
Right.
suggestive thought that now they can allows them to.
Yeah. Or they push through pain that they couldn't stand before, and they
Correct.
seriously injure themselves
They could.
appearing to be able to walk.
They could. Or think about even like
Yeah.
hypnosis, right? Like back in the old
Mhm.
days, they used to hypnotize people as an anesthetic.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, you're shutting off some part of your brain. And that's, again, that's the power of suggestion. It's the same thing as what we're talking
Mhm.
about, just re-angled in a different
Yeah.
direction. So it's like if your brain is capable of going through a root canal with just
Mhm.
hypnosis and not feeling the pain, that's crazy.
Right. Well, I mean, even just simple things. If you ever, I don't know if when you were younger, you played the mind over matter game where like you subject
Mm,
yourself to some mild, like not dangerous pain, but then you just concentrate and you
yeah.
can make it go away and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, but hypnosis can be a powerful thing because my dad went and got hypnotized for smoking and he quit cold turkey for like, I don't remember how long it was, but it was like 7, 10, or 15 years. And the very anniversary of it on one of these years, he just picked up as if he'd never stopped.
Isn't that insane though? I found
Yeah.
it interesting. There's a book out. I forget what the name of it is. I've been listening to it on and off. Remember the movie Wolves of Wall Street?
Yeah.
So that movie's based on a guy and his
Mhm.
philosophy on how to do things. And it's kind of funny because when I was listening to it, he used our new favorite product. He brought it up, Boom Boom Stick.
Right.
So, for anyone that doesn't know, Nick and I, we're big fans of the old Boom Boom Stick now. And it's just an inhalant. It has um, essential oils inside of it. And it really does open up your entire sinuses. I would almost, I would almost say it gives me almost like I mean, I don't know how else to put it, like happiness, like it's like a serotonin or
Mm.
something is the best way I can explain it. To the point to
It
where
I think it just makes you feel good for like a real quick blast, you know?
absolutely. And it's almost like, I mean, it sounds dumb, but I find myself using it when I don't even need it just because I enjoy it.
Mhm.
Like it's a kind of a little hit of some excitement through the day for me. But there's
Yeah.
they're little nasal inhalers, and it's like everyone goes, oh, it's just a typical inhaler like you would get it, wherever it may be, and it's really not. But anyway, the guy from Wolf of Wall Street, his book, he was talking about, he invented this thing called the straight line method. And the way it works is he wanted to put himself in almost like a euphoric stance going into
Mhm.
sales to try to help him be better at sales once he was there. And the way that he ended
Right.
up doing it was every single amazing event that happened in his life that was so good, like it was such an amazing experience. Like let's say he closed this big huge deal and it's for a ton of money. As
Mhm.
soon as he would do it, he would take and inhale the boom boom stick. And then he wouldn't use it again until another euphoric experience would happen, and then he would do it again. And what he
Like
was doing was he
rewarding
was
himself.
100%. So it was like a reward system. So then once he did it enough times, his
Mhm.
brain automatically said, well, this right here this means that something good's about to happen. So when he would go into a sale, he would automatically inhale in both nose holes.
Mhm.
His brain would go to that spot. And his assumption is he was going in, I'm already winning this negotiation.
Right.
And it's interesting because, for one, it was boom boom sticks, which you and I both love. But it's
Mhm.
interesting that, again, similar to hypnosis, he
Yeah.
programmed his brain to do something that you were not naturally capable of doing.
Yeah. it's a lot too, like, you know, the Pavlov's dog experiment there.
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of people have seen The Office where Jim sits next to Dwight and he'd play a sound on his computer, and every time he did, he'd offer Dwight a mint.
Right.
And he'd keep doing this over days and days and days and stuff. And then he'd play the sound, and Dwight would automatically go like this.
Yep.
And he'd be like, What? What are you doing?" And he's like, I don't know. I feel like I should have done. Like, you can trick yourself and you can train yourself. And
100%.
there's a reason that when they do like drug tests where they have a placebo group,
Yep.
they have to offset those numbers because placebos are effective to some degree.
100%. But
So,
think about it. If that's possible, why? Like, what's the reason? And is that in essence kind of like the reverse of a curse?
well, I mean, you can defeat a curse with a stronger blessing.
Correct.
So, in fact, when it comes to like, we like to, or I don't know, I'm just going to say myself, I like to talk about exorcisms and stuff a lot.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, what's happening there is the performance
Mm-hmm.
of an exorcism and this magical stuff. If someone's got a mental illness, that can, you know, make them truly believe that whatever's inside them is gone.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about a magic
Yeah.
trick.
Right.
If it was simple as choose a card and then they choose a card and they put it back and they go seven of diamonds.
Yeah.
That's a boring trick.
Yeah, sure is.
But when you add all the mysteriousness, is this your card? No, it's not. Oh, check your front pocket. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. Like, that's the magic.
Yeah.
That's what makes you
that's the
believe.
thing. The showmanship, like when David Copperfield makes the Statue of Liberty disappear
Right.
or something like that. Like, he could make one this size disappear, and that's pretty amazing, but
Oh, yeah.
the pageantry of it all, the showmanship.
Correct.
Like, we want, our brains want to be wined and dined before we're fooled.
Absolutely. And we're wired that way.
Yeah.
But maybe a reverse curse, you know, when it comes to a curse, maybe it's just rewiring our brain in a negative perspective because now we believe.
Right.
I don't know. I have a bunch of different theories on that. I don't know that I'm even remotely close on any of them.
Yeah. I can't believe we totally neglected to talk about this when we talked about curses, because I think this is almost more important than the original topic.
Well, do you know why, though? It's our old system. We were all about the story and trying to get through the story and
Right.
talking about the story versus now, for those of you that's hung around and you knew the way we did it, I miss telling the stories sometimes, but it's so nice to just kind of have an open decorum to be able to talk about
Yeah.
whatever goes through my mind at that point in time.
Well, the great thing is if you miss the stories, you don't have to miss out on them.
Yeah,
Because Bert's got
correct.
the stories. Nick and Bert just talk.
That's true. That's true. I mean, in essence, you're right. I mean, like my podcast went from just ghosts to now, like I've kind of talked about everything, like, you know, hauntings and UFOs. And like, I did a podcast. It was this last week and it was over, another interesting story. Like I'm digging into stories now because I'm like, if would I or Nick find this like folklore stories I would never look at, but now it's kind of like might be kind of
Folklore is
interesting
where
to
it's
talk about.
at. There's truth in folklore.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of these, like this Dudleyville, that's a folklore story, but
Right.
there's a lot of truth to it. There's an actual ton of information, and it's like might be something there. You
Well,
know.
So being a friend of mine, we've been really into the epic musical that's based off of the Odyssey and stuff like that. So
Yep.
me and her have been going through like ancient Greek myths and stuff like that. And there's a lot of stuff that sounds like mythology, but it has a lot of truth behind it. Like, for example, the city of Troy, it was only a couple hundred years ago we thought that was complete myth. And that was true, including the horse that they
Right.
snuck in on, right?
Correct.
And sirens that used to bring people to shipwrecks. Well, there was a place where the wind used to blow through these caves, making a haunting sound that would draw people close. Well, the villagers realized that if they sat on those rocks and sang along with it, it would draw ships in. They'd crash and they could rob the ships. So those were the sirens from that mythology.
That's super
Like,
fascinating.
this stuff is fascinating.
It makes you wonder. Like there's so many things that we just don't have any comprehension of that when you look back, you go, wow, that's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy that there's something to that. It's like, next week I'm doing, or should I say, this next week. So when this comes out, the following week is when the Dudleyville episode comes out. I'm already writing the script for the one after that also.
Mm.
But the one after that is it's on the disappearing room that's in the hotel.
Oh, that's interesting because there's a lot of stories on that kind of thing. That's interesting.
There is, but the biggest one is the World's Fair is going on. And right now I'm
Mm.
digging through the research. So I don't have all that yet. But the main story, and it's been told a few different ways. I'm probably going to kind of dip in and out of that one. But this woman goes to the World Fair. She ends up getting her mom a hotel room, gets her mom all settled in, leaves and goes back to the World Fair, comes back. Mom's
Mhm.
not there. The hotel has no clue what she's talking about as far as a room. And that's where the story kind of picks up from there.
Oh, that gave me chills. That sounds like something I'd want to listen to.
That's kind of creepy, right? But again, it's
Yeah.
folklore. But then it's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, how much of it's legit? And I'm going to try to bring in other stories where that kind of fit. But, that's the thing. Like folklore, there's stories within the realm of folklore that, you have to kind of, some of it you have to take with a grain of salt. Like the Dudley Town, it's the same thing, right? It's like some of that you have to take with a grain of salt, but some of it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
there might be something to that.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, there's a lot of embellishment and stuff that people don't know. So they have to make up stuff to fit the gaps.
right.
But in the very beginning, there was something true that was going on that caused people to think this.
Well, and what is it we always talk about? You want to look for a pattern, right? If there's a pattern of multiple people,
Mhm.
eventually you have to go, well, there's something there. I don't know what that something is, but there's got to be a reason. There's a pattern, right? Like when we was talking about all
Right.
these cryptids and whatever, and we talked about it. And then for whatever reason, one day we're like, I wonder if that's near a state park. And we started looking at that
Right.
and we found, well, all of them's in a freaking state park. And it's like, why would that be? Like
Exactly.
that's weird. And honestly, I've never heard anyone before us ever mention that or even come up with that concept. To this day, I've never heard anyone else say it.
Mm.
But it's
There's the
like,
missing 411 stuff, but that's not really necessarily linking them all together.
is that the guy that
This
talks
kind of
about the
stuff.
Rangers all the time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a few of his episodes. He does a lot on Bigfoot,
Mhm.
and he does a lot on, there's something else that he does. What is it? Werewolves or something? I can't remember.
Just a lot of it's disappearance stuff and reappearance sometimes.
It could be that YouTube's just feeding me what it is that they think I want.
Yeah.
So I'm probably only getting bits and pieces. Like a prime example, it only gives me, I thought there was a channel that only dealt with true crime for a minute.
Mm.
And then when I looked up their channel, I'm like, oh no, they cover a whole lot. It's just YouTube's telling me I want to hear the
Right.
true crime stuff.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. But that could be the case with that guy. Like I know him as the ranger guy that talks about Bigfoot and I think werewolves or
Mhm.
something.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of it,
Yeah.
but it's not really touching on the same aspects that we're touching on because
Yeah.
we think it's all interconnected.
Right.
With a lot of different stuff. And he's sort of just like on these couple topics, really.
I gotcha. Yeah. I think it's interesting because we'll take a UFO story and combine it to like a ghost story or,
Right.
we've even taken concepts and ideas like probably the best example is interdimensional. We've almost brought that to almost everything in some regard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it could explain so much.
Correct. I still think we live in a doggone simulation,
Yeah.
but that's me.
I want to live in a simulation. I like the idea of that.
I mean, some would say that AI is living in a simulation.
Right.
And it's starting to figure out, oh, wait, this might not be exactly where we think we are.
Well, I mean, to a species above us, we would be a large language model solving problems for them.
Correct. Absolutely. It's kind of creepy. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I like it though. I like to be creepy.
Before we end this thing, I just thought about this. There was
Mhm.
a guy. I'm going to tell this story and see if you figure this out, Nick. There was this guy. He was a game developer. And this game developer was creating this game about ants.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was trying to do was figure out what the best way to basically create this game around the ants and what they should do. And then there was a series of bad things that happened back to back to back. I think one of them was his house caught on fire and he like legit lost everything.
Right.
And what he noticed was it was like one bad thing would happen, then another bad thing would happen, then another bad thing would happen. And he's like, man, this is crazy. So he ended up creating his game eventually, but it
Mhm.
wasn't about ants. Do you know what the game was?
No, I've got no idea.
It was The Sims, and it started out as a game about ants.
I got to tell my friend that because they love The Sims.
If you look up the guy that created The Sims,
Mm-hmm.
there's an entire story of how he came to it. But it started out just a game about an ant colony.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like these series of things that happened back to back to back to back to back.
Well, that's
And
kind
then
of the story of The Sims. Like when you're playing that, just strange things happen to you back to back to back to back.
that's exactly why, because in his life that was happening. And he's
Mm.
like, instead of making this an ant colony game, let's make it about people. And because all these
Yeah.
weird things are happening to me, this can in return happen to the people in that video game.
And people love it.
Correct. I mean, think about how long that game's been out. Forever.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
But what says you at home? Do you think you're living in simulation? Are you doggone sim? Are you doggone sim right now?
Are we speaking Simlish to you right now?
We might be talking Simlish right now. You're right. That's valid.
Don't be
But do you want them all? This is what they always sound like. But listen, hopefully y'all enjoy the podcast. Wherever you're listening to the podcast, please be sure to give us a thumbs up. Also, rate us on any of these glorious platforms that you're listening. And on the YouTube machine, if you're over there, please share it with somebody that you know. Get us out of YouTube jail. We've just accepted our fate. We live
Right.
there now. In jail permanently.
forever.
Forever and ever. Amen. As Randy Travis would say. But hopefully y'all had an enjoyable time. I had an absolute blast. Until we see you in the next podcast. Goodbye.
Bleed a blurp.
Bleed
Bleed all.
ding ding.
Bleed a what? Bleed a dong.